Coming up on this episode of the Gather In podcast.
Really started having a small testimony with Jesus and started sharing that, it grew so much more. And the more I would lean into that and walk with Jesus and ask questions and keep letting go of more things and keep surrendering and I've learned some of it is really learning discernment and other things. And the more I would really...
Welcome to Gather In, where you'll hear stories of conversion to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If you have an interesting story to tell, please go to our Instagram page or send us an email to gatherin@proton.me. Before we start this week's episode, could I ask a small favour? If you could just like and subscribe and follow, but most importantly, leave a small comment when you've finished watching or listening. It'll make it a little bit easier for other people to find the Gathering podcast on whatever platform you're on. Thanks. Okay, I am joined today by Elisha Harris. Welcome, Elisha.
Thank you. Super excited to be here.
Yeah. You've just got home from church. You're looking wonderful.
A little bit ago. Thank you.
For our guests who don't know, I'm in Australia, and so it's now Monday in Australia. It's Sunday for Elisha, so I've had to put my church clobber back on, which I don't mind. Which I don't mind doing, of course, for you. So Elisha and I met a little while ago online, and I made a comment on one of Elisha's posts, which I was a bit cheeky, and I wasn't sure how it was going to go. And fortunately, it went well. So we got to know each other. We won't go into the details there, huh?
Okay, sounds good.
It was sort of funny, and yeah, it went well. And you know, I've been looking.
I loved it. I don't care. It was funny.
I've been looking at Elisha's posts and been very impressed. And for those who don't know Elisha, I have a little summary here about Elisha, which I'll run through, which is pretty impressive. Elisha is a former college basketball coach and a former professional basketball player in Sweden, which must have been a great experience. And you've worked in various jobs over the years, and but most importantly, Elisha has quite a large following on Instagram of about 150,000 people. So you're one of the most popular LDS people on Instagram, which it's interesting because I think you have people from both outside the church and within the church who are following you. Is that right? Because of your
my following is definitely a melting pot. Since a lot of when I first started doing social media, I was just having fun with it, and then I blew up more with sports, especially with my football while I'm playing football in a dress at Baylor. So that took some crazy speed. So I have a lot of sports fans, and then as I've shared a lot more recent things, I've gained a completely new following too, and it's just been, I have a melting pot, and that's beautiful.
Yeah. I've seen the basketball and the dress clip, and it was pretty impressive.
It was fun.
I should try and stick that in here somewhere. I'll see if I can download it and put it in here.
Yeah, throw it on.
Just for those who haven't seen it. But I really like your approach and your thinking around gospel subjects, Elisha. And you come from an interesting background. We had a bit of a chat the other day, and we got to know each other a little bit. I'm a convert to the church, and I've always focused on in my interviews of people who have converted perhaps from another religion and another Christian religion to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or I have interviewed one person who was from another religion totally. And I've got someone coming on next week who is a Christian but not a Latter-day Saint, so a little bit varied. But you have an interesting background, and as you know, Elisha, from our chat the other day, I like to delve a little bit into the past.
For sure.
and find out where you've come from, because certainly on your post you're very open with things that you've gone through in your life, and I'd like to firstly ask you about your childhood and where religion and spirituality played a part in your childhood, because I think you have a pretty interesting story to tell there.
Well, for sure, I do. And, I'll share a little bit of my backstory, a little bit of childhood, but I will set a expectation of me sharing that story. I understand my parents and I love them. And for me, I know that I need to share certain things, not to blame anybody else, but to show what I went through and what I had to walk through. So I don't have any more animosity or any kind of, I never even knew I had some deep wounds from childhood, but I just like to set that because some people want to sit in their little victim. And I'm like, hey, it is what it is. Grew up in that. How did I come out of it? Let's talk about it. So yeah, childhood. Long story short, I don't think my parents should have ever truly got married, but hey, I'm here. So there's that. They got divorced when I was about 3 or 5, just when I was younger. I don't really remember it, but I remember being young, and I don't really remember my dad being around that much. He struggled to show up with a lot of things that he was dealing with. And my mom was super, we'll just say Molly Mormon growing up. And I was super shy and I did not like church. Like, I just didn't fit into Utah culture and I didn't understand things. And I don't even remember my baptism. There's a lot that I don't remember. What I do remember is just being super shy, and I didn't like church, and I didn't want people to ask me my testimony or anything because I didn't have one, which is weird because I'm like, how did I even get baptized? Because I'm like, whatever. Anyway, um, what was I going to say after that? Yeah, it was a challenge. I remember even getting made fun of like in at church for like I'd be the little tomboy or in a sports bra under my dress and somebody making fun of me, and I was just like, whatever. Like, I just didn't like any of it and I didn't know how to embrace it. And I think some of that too though is, you know, being at home, I didn't feel a lot of safety. So, and this is me as an adult working through a lot of stuff looking back. It's like, oh, I definitely didn't
Mm.
have a lot of safety at home. Between there wasn't a father, and my father definitely brought a lot of promiscuity into the home, energetic wise, because I always remember being like, why did I have so many promiscuous thoughts at a young age? But now looking back, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Cool. Okay. So,
Yeah.
I didn't like shy, didn't like religion. It just didn't make sense to me. I was really close to my mom. And then yeah, when she struggled as a single mom, which of
Mm.
course, yes, she had a hard time. And she always just I remember she was like the letter of the law. I remember even my sister writing her out once. I'm like, she drank a Coke. I remember having that belief of like how bad it was to like drink a Coke or something. And I was like, wait, what? And thinking back, I was like, that was never even a thing. But that's how strict my mom was when she was, being raised. And now when I talk to her too, she even tells me about all her stuff and her religious trauma. But at the time, she was so strict and she just really tried as a single mom to live it.
Yeah.
And eventually, in my later years, she ended up getting married to somebody basically so she didn't have to work. I know she didn't want to get married to him, but that opened up a world for her to go explore even more. Because I know that my mom was really big into spirituality, and nobody in church could really, answer that question and to what she was looking for, steward her gifts. And anyway, yeah, a lot of that led to me being like, well, my dad's not active in the church. My mom's pretty active, but now she's over here and getting into a really woo woo world. Like, what's that about? And I'm over here, like, just playing basketball, eating, sleeping, not just being shy girl. And
This sounds like your teenage years you're talking about.
yeah, this is now just teenage years. I didn't go into too much depth, I guess, at a young age, but basically it's a broken home, father's not around, and all those things. So
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
when I'm a teenager, my saving grace was basketball. That's all I had. Like, I was just passionate. Once I finally picked up the sport basketball, I remember being athletic when I was younger. And I remember learning that a double dribble, like at the recess from the boys, they're like, that's a double dribble. I didn't know. I didn't get to play. My parents didn't really put me in sports and paid for like club or anything. So I was just learning wherever I could learn all the time. So yeah, so by high school years when my mom just kind of like she left for a minute to Thailand with my stepdad. They left for like 2 months when I was a sophomore, and she comes back, and I remember seeing a bigger emotional disconnect. And then as I was about to graduate high school, she basically like left that whole week. They just up and left and booked it to Washington. So I just realized I had to go find a place to live at that point. I was like, what? And I do have a sister, and my sister, backtrack like a year or two, she was always pretty active in the church, but my stepdad ended up kicking her out of our house at 17. So she ended up staying with some members that we still know. And she moved out. I mean, my sister weren't close at the time. So I remember thinking, well, I got a bigger bedroom now, so whatever, which was bad, but I just remember thinking that.
Yeah.
So I do have one sister, and she's always been active in church, but I just never, my path looked completely different than my sister's. And I was close to my mom. My sister was actually close to my father. My father, I was never close to him, I think for multiple reasons looking back, and I think we were too much alike, maybe stubborn, or I don't know what it was. We were stubborn at the time, but there were so many other aspects. I didn't always feel safe around him for whatever that means. Like he was going to physically hurt me, but there was something energetic about that. But I love my dad. Again, I'm saying these things, and I love my parents, and I've been talking to my mom a lot more recently, but so yeah, now so college. So basically I got to go find a place to live. So I lived with some people for a while and kind of did some nannying stuff. And I'm not going to go into detail with that, but that was another experience of like, people in religion that I had some experiences with that kind of just were not good for me. And I was like, man, what is going on with, the LDS people? Like, I don't even understand religion. I don't like it. And I'm just getting more experiences of like why I don't like it, I guess you could say. Anyway.
And it's a puzzling time of life that, when you're graduating high school and trying to decide what you're doing with your life, it's a puzzling time of life, isn't it?
Yes, big puzzling. All I knew was basketball. At least I had a scholarship to play basketball, and I just didn't know where I was going to live. And I felt like looking back, I realized even though I was 18, I was still pretty stunted spiritually, like growth wise, because I had so much, I guess you could say, trauma or abandonment or not safety at home, because I understand that depth of things now. And I'm like, whew, my poor little girl at that time, my little child. Anyway, yeah, so after that, I then went to junior college. I started off at junior college. Like, I didn't like school in high school. I don't actually even know how I graduated because nothing really caught my attention. And now, which is crazy because now I just love to learn like crazy. But back then, I just want to play basketball and I hate everything. Anyway, I go to school and I start, and I go to church a little bit, but not really. I think I already have some wounds baked in from some previous experiences with worth about myself, because that's a big thing I've had to walk through. And so it's like, yeah, I'll go to church, whatever, but already had some deep stuff there. But I ended up I had a teammate that I played with. I think it was I can't even remember now, freshman or sophomore year, but I met a return missionary. My friend hooked me up with her brother that came off a mission. And so I was like, oh, sweet. I feel like I was always trying to embrace, whatever Mormonism or the LDS church, or deep somewhere I was trying to embrace it. But, I date this guy and we eventually get engaged and we move pretty fast. But then there was a lot of crazy stuff. Like, I didn't realize he had a pain pill addiction before his mission. And so he started getting on that and doing all these different things. And I'm over here trying to survive without a family. His whole family was there. And I'm like, what? And anyway, that was another experience. And that led into when I went to a different university, I chose to go somewhere else to get far away from that, even though I was still connected to him. But I realized I had teammates that were telling me he was like cheating on me. And then he said he wasn't. And then eventually he's like, I got a girl pregnant. I was like, wait, you weren't cheating on me? And now you were. Anyway, that became a whole thing too. And I was so attached to him because of my attachment style was so anxious that I realized, again, looking backwards, And but that's another experience and belief of like, man, another LDS man that, like, what is this? I don't get it. Like, I've never even been, I don't even have a testimony, but these people are going on missions and doing things, and this does not make any sense to me. So there's another one there. That ended crazy. And so the second college I went to was the University of Alaska Anchorage. So now I went up there. My first year up there, I really, really struggled. Like, again, I chose to kind of go up there. One, the coach was supposed to be amazing and really, really good. And so I go up there to also get away from the situation, but I break my foot on the first day too. So that kind of sucks. And I had to pay for it. And I felt like I was always in situations where I'm cleaning up pieces for somebody else. Cause then I had to, even for the coaches, I'm like, all right, well, let me just pay for my own bill and hide the fact that you had me play without insurance. Like, they just broke all the rules. And I just tried to not get them in trouble. Anyway, so that started my year of, I'm far away from home. I never actually wanted to leave Utah, but I eventually finally did. Homebody leaving Utah, broken foot, hated school. So it was really, it was an expanding year, and I struggled, and, but once I came out of that, my second year, that's when everything ended with my fiance, when I found out who was cheating. And so I had to decide if I was going to go back up to Alaska my senior year. And so I was in a lot of tears all summer. I want to go. I couldn't make decisions my whole life. That was half of the hardship of coming from a conflicting home or an unsafe home, is I just didn't know how to make decisions because I didn't want to make a poor one. And I just didn't want to fail, but it was so hard. And so I finally told him, no, I'm not coming. And like 2 days before, I end up going back up to Alaska, and my scholarship was taken from me, and I chose to stay up there and take out student loans. And the girl that was like my best friend that year, she was the one that actually got my scholarship. So I'm like, what the freak? But anyway, that I went back up, and even though all that happened, I had a better year. But then it was also a start of another situation in dating. He wasn't LDS, but he definitely challenged my LDS beliefs even more, even though they were already crumbling and they weren't really there to start with. But I ended up dating my college basketball coach like 7 years of my life, until I was down coaching in Odessa, Texas. And I just remember thinking, like, he wasn't fully telling me the truth, and I just want to know. And I was so tired of being so attached to him, and I just wanted to know truth. So there was a part of me that was like, I need to know what the freak is going on. And so somehow he was coaching at a university at the time in Colorado, and they were playing in the Mountain West Championship game tournament that weekend. And I decided to fly out there. And long story short, I was able to get the truth with 2 other assistants that were involved. And yeah, I don't know how much detail I need to go there, but if anybody wants to hear that full story, that is on my YouTube channel, and I actually go into depth on that. And it's a wild, crazy time where I confronted him in front of 2 other women that he was claiming to date too. So I feel like I could make a whole movie out of just that story alone. I have so many stories in my life that I'm like, wow, I forget that, I walked through some interesting things. Anyway, so after that, I remember just being so torn. Like, my heart was just shattered, and I didn't know what to do. But I do remember that I always wanted to play basketball overseas. And so I remember talking to my coach, and I was like, hey, this is what I want to do. And he actually supported it. So I quit my job in Odessa, and I went to Sweden. And that's actually the first time that, I had a little bit more time to myself. Because when I coached college basketball, I was like, I was recruiting all the time, or I was working on something, and I was just around these athletes all the time. And dating wasn't really, it was hard to date in some of these locations I was living in, but you didn't really have that much time either as a college coach. And so it was cool to live in Sweden, play basketball I loved. Even though I had a injury most of the year, I still got my experience over there. And that was actually the first year I started reading the Book of Mormon by myself. And I remember thinking, it brought me some peace, but nothing too crazy. But I did have some peace from it. So that was good. Gave me that time, and I got to do something I always wanted to do. And then I came back to the States. Oh, I completely missed like the whole one of my biggest religious trauma scenarios. So before before the whole thing I found out about the coach and leaving my job in Odessa, before that, I actually was trying to go to church a little bit, right? And I remember having a stake president. I was talking to him about some stuff. Again, I don't have a testimony. I really don't. I'm just trying to go to church. And then he asked me all these deep questions sexually, and I answered them, and he wrote everything down, and it was just crazy. And then he called a disciplinary council. And again, I'm not going to just be super pissed off at these people, but I know other people have been hurt by these processes. Um, because looking back with this process, there was nobody to actually, I don't feel like the spirit was actually there, like trying to get to know my situation, trying to understand who I am instead of just whipping out the letter of the law. And so anyway, he took all that information and did a whole disciplinary council, and then I had to go say in front of a bunch of men all the same details. You wanted me to be very descriptive again in front of everybody. And that was pretty humiliating. And I remember thinking way worse about myself. And then I, they made a decision. They were gonna excommunicate me, but then they're like, but we got to pray about it. And so they only disfellowshipped me. And I was like, and I remember talking to friends after that. I was like, wait, what? I don't even know what. Anyway, and so they sent me a letter and they're like, well, you're going to get a letter and you'll have 14 days to appeal this decision. I'm like, how do I have 14 days to appeal God's decision? I am so confused. All of it. And it was like late anyway. It was like 14 days late. And I was like, so I don't even have time to appeal even if I wanted to. But I was so confused with the whole process that I'm like, it just kind of made me hurt even deeper. And I'm like, I
And
don't understand.
you were still pretty young at this time, weren't you?
That was 2015.
Yeah,
So
so you're sort of in your
probably
early
like
20s.
28, 27.
Yeah,
But like
yeah,
when I look back at me, it's like I was stuck in a really deep childhood wounds and some younger
yeah,
ones too.
yeah.
Some other trauma that I walked through. And, you know, it's like, again, if knowing what I know now, I see that sometimes there's, and that was a while ago, but sometimes if you really invite the spirit and if we're really trying to help people, especially in a generation of so much stuff, if we can actually go deeper with people and get to know them, like I do this for work a little bit, right? It's like usually there's something deeper causing the behavior. And oftentimes church culture has just been whipping out the law of behavior instead of being like, well, why don't we see actually what's going on? Like what's actually there? Because it doesn't, I've learned you can't even really truly live the letter of the law with my whole journey without actually surrendering and coming closer to Jesus in a different way. It was never about willpower to live a certain way. And it's, anyway, that's a whole nother thing by itself. But I'm like, holy cow. And in some of my perception of what I've walked through, I realize I'm like, I feel like we're teaching some things backwards in a lot of ways. But anyway, my personal opinions based on my journey with God, and I just can't deny what I know. So anyway, I felt like I needed to share that because that's definitely a story I wanted to share here because that was a big one.
Sure. Yeah.
So after I played in Sweden, I came back home and I really was still kind of lost. I had a lot of people ask me, hey, come do door-to-door sales or come do this. And I had a chance to get back into college coaching, which is weird. Like I didn't really want to get back into college coaching, but I almost took a job at Dixie State. And then I was like crying. And then I was like, no, that doesn't feel right. So I had to tell them, no, everybody thinks I'm crazy. Cause I know a lot of people that want to coach college basketball, but for me, my heart just didn't feel like that was my route. Like there was something, I was so passionate about my life, my whole life, even with my trauma or being shy and all these things, there was still something deep that I just felt like I was supposed to do in life. And I guess that just wasn't it, but I'm grateful for all my years of coaching college basketball. But I ended up getting into, and I was so sad. I'm like, why am I letting go of this job? And then I get hired at like Amazon doing high volume hiring. I get hired at Delta Airlines and I get hired at Utah Jazz Camps and Clinics. So now I'm working all these 3 jobs for at least a year. Nobody saw me. I was working like 16-hour days, 7 days a week. It was crazy. Didn't have time for anything, but I was learning to hustle. Like I'm in a phase of my life where I'm trying to figure out purpose and this and that. And so I'm looking, and I didn't want to be broke like my parents. And I was just, but I've always been open to explore. And so eventually I do quit the Amazon job though. And I get kind of back into sports, and I volunteer at Westminster College, and I keep Delta. But then COVID happens, and then that kind of crashes that. And then I just have Delta Airlines, and now I'm just traveling. But that's when I really get back into door to door, because I met a woman and I wanted to follow some women that, were, powerful women. She was really good at door to door sales, and I kind of wanted to learn from a woman. And that was actually a really cool experience on two sides. And that kind of led up to 2022, when I had like the best year of my life up to that point, not realizing now. But like, when I come from a background of no security with parents financially or any emotionally or any way, really, it's like I didn't have any kind of safety net. Like my sister a little bit, yes. Like my sister got married young, and she's still married, and she's always allowed me to come there. But parent wise, and that was not there. Anyway, so 2022, I finally start making the most money I ever had in a summer. Loving life. I have Delta, and I'm just traveling the world, loving that. And then that's when I also made it on ESPN, playing football in a dress. Again, you'll have to cut that clip in there maybe. And, I was just having fun. And like a little, the year before that, I remember hiring this mentor that, I think he's an LDS guy, but he wrote this book called Sultan Seven Secrets. And it's actually about the story of Aladdin, but it's a true story of Musa of Mali. And it's also based on, the light of Christ, of like Musa almost dies, and has this experience with the man made of light and love, and learns all these secrets, and like comes out. Anyway, he was like teaching some of these secrets and all these things. And I love the book. So I would just like that year, I remember just having so much fun with my vision and my mindset of like, oh my gosh, well, I want to be playful, and I want to have fun, and I want to impact people. And I was just trying to really create a vision. And so that year, things just started flowing a little bit, but I was also hustling and grinding at the same time. And I was living in 2 states, and man, I was just making it happen like the world tells you to, right? Go make it happen, get it done, especially athletic mindset. But by the end of the year, I remember thinking, because I had my boss, that woman that's, she was really good at her job. She hired like a mentor herself. And I remember thinking, man, I want to get a mentor, but I also want a quantum leap, because that's like the word you use in that world. And by the end of the year, there was still something kind of missing in my heart. I'm like, well, I don't know what it is, but there's still something missing. Even though I'm doing all these things and I'm having fun, something is missing. So that was my verbiage. God, I want a quantum leap, whatever that looks like. Oh, and be ready to ask those questions to God, and your life will, kind of change. But so, again, this was a beautiful year. It was just like, I wanted that next level. I wanted to be even more in flow. I wanted to be more in purpose. And so God definitely threw some things into my life. And so we'll get a little bit more vulnerable with the only thing that also was off that year is, we spoke a little bit on, and I've spoken a lot on my social media about this, about like, I dated a woman one time, like 2 years before that year, or maybe a year before that. Anyway, it was unintentional, but I eventually cut it off and had to. And so the 2022, that was the thing that was off. I went on some dates with some dudes, and then they like grabbed my face and kissed me. I'm like, ugh, no connection. There just wasn't anything there. And so I'm like, interesting. But I also realized the heart blocks a lot of things off. Anyway, so fast forward, now I'm asking God to quantum leap. And I'm also asking like, well, am I a lesbian? Am I not? Like, what's going on? So I go down this path where I met this lady in Texas, and she actually was pretty connected to God in her own little way that's different from religion. And I'm like, she was kind of in this woo-woo space, and I was drawn to that. And she had some spiritual gifts she was working on, but she also had a lot of trauma that she went through like I did. And so I realized I really connected with her deeply on some of those things. And I realized I made her my source, because looking back, I made my college basketball my source. I've made a lot of people my source. And now I know what I was doing. So in this world that we talk about attachment styles, that's like some of it. I was like, wow, I made her my God. I made her my source. What? So when that, that was a magical time. And I feel like, it was a message of time. That was God kind of answering my question of like, oh, you want a quantum leap? We better open up those wounds, because I remember when she felt like she needed to end it. And that actually did open up all my wounds, because I thought that I healed from like my coach and all these things. And what I've learned from that is time alone does not heal you. Time can help with the process, but doing the work, this is hindsight, because when she ended it, she even looked at me and told me that I had a lot of rage from my father. I didn't realize that. I didn't even feel that, but I realized my emotions were so caged up somewhere else, like all of that I literally was so disconnected from my own spirit. And so that led me to, this journey of, okay, well, before she ended that, I met another lady at this women's retreat for solar for all these women that were in leadership. And she, she spoke about God and about getting more in your flow and your feminine. And I was like, wait, who is this woman? And she was just more, talking about angels and all these things. And it just kind of lit me up. And so when this other woman, when that stuff ended, I was listening to this woman's podcast, and God kind of led me to her. And so the next day, as I'm driving my car from Texas to Utah to move back completely to Utah, I remember I got a shirt in my color at the Walmart. It's like God was speaking to me so clearly as my heart was wide open and all the pain, all the sorrow. It's like, where God guides, he provides. About like 3 of them. And it's actually this color, because this is like, it's not orange and it's not pink. It's like a bright in between. Anyway, so ever since then, it's like, whoa, where God guides, he provides. That's been kind of like the last 3 years of my life, the starting of that. And so I hired this mentor. And this is what I want to tell people, because I've tried to teach people on social media that I didn't meet God at church. I met God in the freaking wilderness. And I remember after that shirt, and I got there and I went to one of her free events, she just kind of, I just felt God like you're supposed to work with her. I didn't know what I was going to do in life or jobs or anything else, but I just felt like I was supposed to do some work with her and get more into this quantum leap or this flow and this feminine essence, and not so much just masculine grind that I was taught to do in the world. And anyway, spent a lot of money on her, but I know that God was like, you're going here. And I was like, what? And yeah, so after that was like the start of my journey to, well, I remember I told her, my biggest thing for me, I told her, is like, amongst all the things I want, because everybody that knows me, especially from years ago, I'm so passionate. And I realized my energy was so fractured. I remember when I first started talking to her, she's like, you're like close, but you just have a lot of fractured energy. I was like, what does that even mean? When most people would just say it's just ADHD, but most people are fractured because we're fractured internally, generationally, and other ways that I understand now. And so, because I remember having all these ideas, but it was never clear. It was never like streamlined. And so when I remember filling out one of her things, when I started working with her, it was like all these many things, but one specific was, I really want to listen. I want to trust my intuition. That was like something that just came so deeply to me, because my whole life, if I had to make a career change or coaching change or any kind of whatever change, I would ask like 50 people. And then I would like go be depressed for a day or 2 or a week before I could make a decision, because it was so hard to make a decision, because I didn't want to fail. I didn't know how to trust God, or I didn't have a safety blanket. And I didn't have parents that really guided me. So it was so hard to make decisions. So that was a big thing, and she was big on teaching, feminine intuition and all these things, and feminine and masculine energy and how they work together in creation. And that just like lit me up. So, and it was cool because I was able to just have somebody I realized she was LDS, and I was like, and God was like, hey, that's good, because I actually needed somebody to ask deeper questions to, wait, and it was cool because it was never, even when I brought up the whole situation with like dating women, she was never like, you have to do this or that. She was also, because for me, deep down, some of my question for myself was, I don't want people to tell me who I am. I don't want people to tell me if I'm gay or if I'm not gay. I'm like, I want to know for myself, and I want to talk to God about that. So that was also like kind of that journey, because some people are like, you didn't even like talk about it early. It's like, well, because I didn't want people, because now we live, it's like almost a fear now because we live in a world of like pushing you one way or the other because of, for their benefactor, right? It's like, well, you're not gay because like that's not possible, and go over here, or you are gay and that helps us over here. I'm like, guys, like just there's so much more depth to it, in my opinion, in my walk. But so going through these processes outside of the church, it's like I really needed a lot of nurturing and guidance, and to even see what was deeper going on, and to even reclaim my agency. I learned that because I've been so judgmental of myself or been hurt by people in church, it's like, it was like so constricting of like, I guess I'm just, unworthy or whatever, and I don't really have agency, or I'm screwed over here with God. But I just realized there was so much more depth to what I was feeling. And I remember even getting a priesthood blessing early from a guy that I really trust now, and he runs some really amazing trainings that I went through where I finally felt the Spirit deeply, yes, outside of church. And it kind of opened up some stuff for me. And I remember I got a blessing, and one of them, and it said that I really needed to let go of a lot of the darkness that the church placed within me so that I could convert to God. And I was like, okay. So I remember that was part of the journey of really looking of where I was hurt, so I could like look at it and heal it and let it go. And that's part of, now I understand forgiveness on a deep level, because it's not intellectual forgiveness. It's like, where was I hurt? And how can I let that pain go, even though it really hurt? And how can I let any pain go? Because I remember thinking forgiveness was just intellectual. Anyway, so I went on a deep journey with taking a lot of blocks and beliefs in my subconscious, I guess you could say, and childhood stuff that were just so in the way, and learning to just explore for myself again and have agency, and started feeling good about myself and truly starting to love myself. And so after working with her for a year, that following year, I started actually really kind of going to church and starting to read scriptures and starting to figure out that aspect of it, and baby steps. And because I felt God internally more, it's like, oh, okay, now that I have a connection with that, I'm going to go to church because I have that connection, not just because somebody told me I need to go to church. I actually feel like I want to go to church. And that was huge for me because I never really had that before. And so I started learning more about Jesus and experiencing that walk too. And I'm like, wait, what? Jesus is real? So I started getting baby testimony and would start sharing it. And the more I shared it, the bigger it would grow. But yeah, one more thing. A couple months before that, when I spoke about that guy that he'd walked through a lot of trauma, and him and his wife do a lot of trauma work too. And they're both LDS, but they run a cool training that one of the last processes, which is so cool. And I remember like a flood of emotion just coming out of me and feeling like something I really have never felt, maybe when I was a child, I don't remember, but I just never felt that. And I was like, wait, what? And when I look back, I was like, that was like finally when I felt the Spirit, just like it was like my heart finally could start feeling again a little bit. Anyway, I had to share that because it's called Refined You, and it was part of some of my trainings that I went through, because I realized in this generation we just have so much stuff, and people just think it's like, well, I'm living the law of chastity and living these things. But I've learned you can live this letter of law, but if you don't look at what's hiding or what limiting beliefs about yourself is there, you can't actually receive more and heal more, no matter how much you just stay right here. And so this is like a safety blanket. I've learned that the letter of the law is a safety blanket, and it keeps you safe, but it doesn't actually transform you. The spirit of the law will transform you and change you. Anyway, so met God outside in the wilderness and did a lot of deep work, spent a lot of money, Because I just remember thinking in my head, like in my heart, I remember feeling there's something so much more than this world. Because I was just like, I was passionate about life, but there's something more. And I knew I wanted a family. I always wanted kids growing up, and it never happened. And I know a lot of people mocked my whole journey of like, man, Elisha's everywhere and she's doing all these things. And why can't she settle down? And, but I've learned too, everybody has such a different walk in life, and everybody, they didn't get to choose necessarily how their parents were going to show up. And they also, I believe, chose something before we came here. And God was very clear that I chose to go through a lot of trials to now be able to help other people overcome really hard trials, like multiple, right? The shyness, the this, the that, same-sex attraction. Like there's so many things I had to deal with. And so it makes sense why God led me to somebody, and I invested. It's like I couldn't even be on the teeter-totter. I invested so much money in myself. It's like I literally couldn't look back, and I had to go forward into the unknown. It was like I had to go off the boat into the water, because even when I signed up and I started doing the work, it's like Delta Airlines was ripped from me, and that was my favorite side job because I could just go travel the world, and I had so much fun with it. And that was like a massive heart wound too. I was like, what are you doing, God? Really? I choose to follow you, and you're doing this. And so it looked like everything that I'd worked so hard for and hustled for was crumbling. And even people around me are like, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you doing that? Or why aren't you chasing that? Or like they would just even mock my decisions of they didn't understand that either. Right. So long story short, once I kind of that, it grew so much more. And the more I would lean into that and walk with Jesus and ask questions and keep letting go of more things and keep surrendering and I've learned some of it is really learning discernment and other things. And the more I would really started having a small testimony with Jesus and started sharing that, it grew so much more. And the more I would lean into that and walk with Jesus and ask questions and keep letting go of more things and keep surrendering and I've learned some of it is really learning discernment and other things. And the more I would really not just learn discernment or just learn to trust somebody else, but learning to trust myself and my intuition of what God's saying and hearing that voice specifically. It's really like I understood the serpent, the whole thing about being deceived. It's like, well, you get to kind of learn from it so you can learn which voice is right and which one isn't. And if you don't even allow yourself to fail, you can't even grow. And I've learned that that's a huge thing too, because some people are so afraid to make mistakes. I'm like, that's why Jesus came and why he did what he did. So as we make mistakes, we can actually become. And that's what I learned even as a basketball coach. If you get an athlete in practice and they just won't allow themselves to make mistakes and they want to be rigid, they can't get better. And so it's like, okay, Jesus Christ was here. It doesn't mean I'm going to intentionally just like, oh my gosh, but if I do, because he died and he walked this path, I have a way to clean up all the wounds. I have a way to clean up all the separation. We just look at sin as bad, but if we can reframe sin sometimes of also separation from God, it's like, okay, I was separated. Now I'm coming back. How can I actually get back? How can I feel clean? Like actually just feel I don't have the guilt. I don't have the pain. I don't have the shame. I don't have these things because it never actually came from him, and he's going to help heal that separation. And it's like this path that I walk. I feel like some people almost don't like my testimony because people don't want to change in multiple ways. And I've learned that that's a big, deep fear for people. But I'm like, well, it's like, how many unbelieving believers do we have? I'm like, what was the whole purpose of Jesus? Is to show us that we are miracles, that we can change, that we can become. And I've deeply walked with that. And there's even more to come. And I'm like, holy cow, guys, like this is so miraculous and glorious, this path. And it's not easy, but you don't get to experience the fruit and the beautifulness of it until you sacrifice first. And that's the hard part. It's like you have to give something up first, something that you really want, your little teddy bear, and you can't see the big teddy bear. So it really is a massive trust fall into the unknown. And nobody wants to be in the unknown because it's painful to be in the unknown. It's painful to let go of control, especially in a life where it's like, well, I had to survive my whole life. And then I finally learned to control and figure it out and make it happen. But then God's like, oh, but now let's tear that apart and like get rid of all that so you can learn to fully now trust and heal and literally walk with the Spirit, where you don't have to control anymore, where you can build spiritual gifts, where you can live a life that's so different from this world. And it's like, what? This is so crazy how real Jesus Christ is and how real transformation is, but it does require looking at things that are uncomfortable. It requires walking through the being wrong. It requires being like, man, I was wrong, and being okay and letting go of pride and saying that's even why he died too. Cause like he's allowing us to make mistakes and believe stupid things about ourselves or whatever it is. And then to eventually be like, you know what? I was actually wrong. And I want to choose this path. And wow, walking towards the tree of life is actually better, even if the world doesn't promote it, because I actually feel peace. I feel wholesome. I've lived a life outside of that, and not intentionally. Like I was never a big partier or anything. And I was actually trying to do the right things, but my heart was searching for longing, was wanting, to be loved and all these things. And that took me down paths when I didn't have my own worth to allow people to, do things that maybe I, in a better state of who I was, when I have chose those things. So I remember as I was going even deeper with Jesus and trusting, and I just felt like it was time to go to the temple. But I heard so much trauma, and everybody shares so much about the temple and how whatever, or how bad it is and this and that. Not everybody. What I'm saying is, the ones that have trauma. So I remember when I was preparing for it, I was basically living a temple life anyway at that point. Like I'd done so much work where it's like, well, I'm already living that life, but it was still kind of like, do I want to make that? Like, why am I doing this? Is that real? Or is that a facade? Because I've heard both sides, the extremes, right? Oh, the temple's great, all this and whatever. Anyway, but for me, when I felt like I needed to go through, because I've learned to trust God more than what anybody's telling me to do. I'm always going to trust God before somebody, even if a bishop or somebody tells me some advice, I'm still going to double check with God and be like, is that accurate? Is that the next step? Or what do I need to learn from that advice? And so I remember thinking when I went through the temple, which is it's almost a year now. It was like April 15th, which was the same day that lady ended things. Like 2 years prior, it was like a big thing for me. I was like, wow, it's like that was the moment that needed to happen so I could go here. She even said it. She's like, you got big things to do in life. So go do it and go work on this stuff. Anyway, so I told myself, okay, as I go to the temple, or I just heard God kind of say, don't worry about everything you see or that they say. More focus on how you feel with me and what I'm talking to you about too at the same time, right? Because I knew I'm making covenants and these things, but I've heard so much traumatic things about what's going on in the temple that I really just focused on my connection with God through it. And so what I can say is because I was in so much alignment and I did so much deep work, I really could feel the power of making those covenants and like that endowment part of like, whoa, okay. So I walked out and I remember feeling an added strength. Because I already felt very powerful from a lot of work that I did and I was at a good place, but like that gave me an added layer of something that I can't deny. I remember writing, I was like, well, it even made me a little bit more courageous. And I was already pretty ballsy. Like my whole life I've been a little courageous doing some of the things I've done, but that gave me even more blanket to do even his work, right? Of like, okay. And it's cool because God never forces us. And that's what I've learned about God. He really doesn't try to take our agency away at all. Because I remember thinking, man, he really wants me to start sharing my story on social media. And he wants me to talk about those things. And I remember getting a blessing once. And it was basically like, he's given me the ability to see where I need to go and what needs to happen, even if other people don't understand it, but that he's also not going to force me. That's where I've learned the co-creation part too. It's like, well, this is the vision and where I want to go and remembering my mission in life and feeling it's like, well, I can't really avoid because this is part of it. And so the more I would speak and get vulnerable, because I did so much vulnerable work, outside and other ways, now I was ready to bring that to social media and at church and everywhere I was going on a deeper level. And I was able to do it even more because of that added power that I was given. It was like an added shield, which was really cool. So if people want to make fun of the temple, it's like, well, at the end of the day, I did deep work and I can't deny. Now, sometimes there's things that I'm like, there could be some cultural stuff, but my opinion on things. But at the end of the day, I did feel that, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful that I prepared my heart space to receive that, because I truly believe, right? Even if we're living the letter, but if I don't think I'm worthy and all these things, and there's something going deeper, you can't receive the higher blessing. And then I've realized too, since it's almost been a year, to keep receiving that depth of that endowment that keeps changing you in that walk is not just keeping the basic covenants, right? Or the basic commandments. Now it's the higher commandment. I've learned there's a higher walk. It's like, ooh, but what is my heart and soul? What is God calling me to do? Like, that's the higher learning to trust. And like, oh, you want me to speak? Okay. Well, I do want to do that. Okay. Because I want to go here and I want to live out my mission. Oh, you're asking me to do that. Now you're asking me to do that too. And you're asking me to go off here. You're asking me to let go of this. What? And that's when he still meets us where we're at, and we can choose to keep going and how far we want to go. And it's been crazy because, again, now that it's almost been a year, I remember, man, it was crazy going through these walks and starting to share on socials and people like mocking it or like, that's not, like, I'm like, well, that's my story. So, but the more I shared on a deeper level, the more I could receive even more. It's like, it's a whole cycle. You really can't, it's like, okay, I made covenants in the temple, but if you're not willing to walk it and you're not willing to be, it's like, it's so funny. God showed me deeply, like, why do we have a trumpet on the temple? So that as you get an endowment, as you really become that testimony and start to embody it, you're supposed to be able to speak with that authority through the Holy Ghost. You're supposed to be able to speak with that when you overcome, right? And I was like, ooh, but when you overcome and you actually walk it. So it's like, you can go make covenants, but now it's like, but are you going to walk it? Are you going to like go there? Even if you fail, it's like, okay, because it is still like, okay, this didn't work. This did. Okay. And I can't deny, like, even there's a part of me that didn't want to share that I was LDS, like back in like, that I was super involved in it, like back in November, because I want to help people heal and become. And I know it's a trigger for people, but then it dawned on me. I was like, no, I need to share this because I'm also bridging the gap and speaking two languages for people, because I know how to speak in that spiritual woo-woo and bring it in with LDS, terms for people that I know have, left because they want to experience that spiritual side. And so I've had people reach out like, whoa, you're like these two worlds. And so that opened up a massive door once I started doing that. And then recently, the last few months, once I started actually speaking, not just posting, but like using my voice, that God's like, you have a powerful voice. And the more I've shared it and the more I've shared my testimony and the more I exercise the ability to speak a certain way and let the Holy Ghost kind of speak through me, the more powerful it becomes. And I'm like, sometimes I look at the stuff I just said or like how I said it, I was like, that's wild. I'm like a walking miracle, because when I even look at my childhood, the girl that I couldn't even call the pizza man to order pizza, like it was that in high school. It's like a literal walking miracle to be able to now. And I remember always thinking that I wanted to help a lot of people and I wanted to speak, but I never knew how people did it. And then I remember like seeing people like professional speakers and networking events, but still then there's still like a facade sometimes in that business world where they're just speaking. And now I know the difference of like speaking intuitively and speaking with the Holy Ghost and how powerful that is. Because that's something I feel intuitively that I was always looking for, that it was part of my future. Because when you have access and God really does download you with further light and knowledge, especially that you get to tie in with your experiences. Like, it's so cool. I can't deny like the things that we actually talk about. And I think some of the deeper stuff is hard to talk about because I don't know how many people actually believe in the miracles, in the overcoming, in the transformation, in the quickening of like, whoa, what is happening? What? Wait, really? It's like heaven really, floodgates just really start to open up. So anyway, sorry, that was a lot, but I get passionate and just have to share.
You do, Elisha. This has been fantastic. I want to just explore briefly where you are now. I mean, you've received your endowment in the temple a year ago or so. You're living in Salt Lake, and you're fully involved church-wise. Do you have a calling at the moment, or are you, what are you doing there, and how's it all going now, right now?
Yeah, no, those are good questions. Yeah, I've been active. I've actually have two callings. I probably need to let one of them go, but because I was first called to be part of like sports like the sports director. And so I've run like a 3-on-3 tournament and stuff and having fun with it. But I'm also a ward missionary. So I do that naturally anyway. I bring people to church with me. I have fun with it. And so now they put me in since I'm naturally doing it. And sometimes I'll even go knock doors with the actual missionaries that are on missions. I'll kind of give them some tips of like how to actually connect though, instead of, because sometimes when we get too in the masculine, it's like, okay, people want connection more than anything. And so it's fun to be able to have those skills to kind of teach that. So that's what I'm doing. And it's weird because God's, in my professional career, he's been very loud of like, you, even in the pre-existence, were like this coach type person to help build people and help, people in all these different ways. And I've learned that even the perfection that God talks about is so different than what people think perfection is. Because like to be perfected by Jesus Christ is by allowing yourself to be in all the cracks and just allow yourself to make so many freaking mistakes so that you can be refined internally and learn by your own way. And then you're like, oh, and then you start to live a certain level of law because you experience that with him. And then you start to learn that discernment gift. And so you start to embody also like all those components of, the characteristics of Jesus, because now you become that because you're starting to receive that. So it was never about, because it's reverse of a culture that I was raised in of like, oh, you just got to do more. You just got to do this. Just only go serve more. Just do this, which like, yes, those things are important, but there's a whole depth of the feminine and even realizing, how real the mother is, Heavenly Mother, that if you don't have that feminine side, that's the epitome of why scriptures even say living the letter of the law is dead. And even when I went into this world of, you see like all the gurus that talk about feminine and masculine energy or intuitive and logical, it's like, well, all those components are real and they're actually in the gospel, the fullness of it. And so when you can learn internally how to like connect with your internal eternal family, like the mother and father, and that components of how they work together and how Jesus intertwine the two to become Jesus Christ, like that walk that he shows us how to walk, I'm like, that is so crazy. And it's so cool because I've, experienced some of that, like even as you mess up and you learn, but you keep testing it out and you're allowing yourself to do those things. And look, like some of the messing up for people that they don't want to do is saying the wrong thing or stumbling or looking like an idiot because you tried something and it didn't work. And those are the things people are afraid to do. But I've learned that, you can't really progress if you won't be able to be seen. A lot of people have a hard time being seen, like on a soul level, not just a physical level, right? It's like, here's my physical self, or here's my bodybuilder self, or here's my intellectual. And God's like, no, there's something more deeper. How can you have your soul be seen? To like when you're a child and you didn't care, how can you clean up all those patterns and get back to a healed child? Because the healed child, it's like the internal family really is the father, the mother, and your healed child. And your healed child or your broken child, or I should say unhealed child, one of them is running the show. Do you want to let all your unhealed child run the show? Or do you want to have a healed child run the show in the background, which is your subconscious, basically, so, symbolically, so that you can actually spiritually mature, because I felt my own spirit finally break free to actually mature, because I was so stuck in patterns, and I had fun, and I was, all my loudness and my fractured energy, and I was passionate, was all out there, but it was out here. It was like, how do I gather in all that fracturedness to become in so much internal alignment that, it's almost like the cross is like, you got to have that alignment internally this way and this way to receive and become. And all it is having a willing spirit and willing to try things and willing to follow even when you fail, or even if I got a little deceived over here, it's that willingness, even when people mock you, to keep going. And that's really hard for people, especially when you've never understood that skill. And I'm like, no matter how much you live the letter of the law, if you won't walk that path and get off the boat with Jesus, you'll still stay stuck. So it's like you can stay stuck outside of church or inside of church, depending on those things. But anyway, hopefully that wasn't too much, but.
No, it was a lot. It was a lot, but not too much.
Okay.
That's for sure. So,
yeah. I'm just like, I wanted to say one more thing. I am an open book. Sure. I love sharing because I know that symbolically, Jesus has taught me that the reason he shows his wounds is because that's actually the best way to teach people, is when we can overcome and finally share our wounds. It kind of gives us authority to speak on certain things, but it also connects us, because vulnerability and the wounds and the cracks connect us, and perfection of this outer perfection disconnects us from each other. And so in my professional life, I definitely help coach people overcome different things, and I help push people to the just baby steps so that they can allow themselves to fail and be great and become all that Jesus Christ, wants us to become, and really fine tune those spiritual gifts. Because I think we're coming into a world that, yes, is dark and glorious, and it's like we're in a dividing space of like, which side are you going to choose? And let's go here. Don't let the fear and the darkness place you over here, and let's go over here, because it's really actually miraculous and so cool.
Yeah.
So,
Elisha, remember I said I was going to ask you 2 questions towards the end. You've already answered these questions. I think, I was going to ask you, what's your favorite part of being involved in the church? I bet it's missionary work.
It is missionary work, but helping people know who they are. I feel like even if you're in the church and you know all the right verbiage, like I'm a child of God or I'm this, but they don't believe it or they don't see it. And so I love, even with some of our missionaries, I pointed out, because I feel like being humble, I feel like there's a culture of like, well, if I'm humble, that means I just got to act unworthy, or like I'm not good enough. Because I see that sometimes. But it's being humble with Jesus actually makes you powerful, because you can be super confident when you heal things. So they go together. It's not one or the other. That's what Jesus is trying to teach the and. And I love teaching that component, because it's just like being a woman. Well, I guess I can't have any masculine, strength within me. It's like, no, I need both. Like we need both to stand for the end. I can be humble and confident. Being humble doesn't mean I have to hide and not be seen, because some people might think it's egotistical if I actually shine bright and share my gifts. Because I remember having those, things hold me back sometimes, of like, well, who are you to like speak up? Well, who are you not to speak up? Because you'll know the difference. Is your intention to speak up because you want to share your gifts and your light so you can help other people rise up too? Or is your intention, because you haven't healed yourself, to just be seen, kind of, and egotistically that can be prideful or just pain because you haven't healed it yet. So it's like, but if you know your intentions to help God and follow, it's like, cool, you're going to know better than anybody. And somebody else might. I've had a Latter-day lady like hate on some of my stuff. She's like, who are you? And because she hated that feminine, and I was like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm teaching my testimony. And so it doesn't matter if you're in the church or not sometimes, because like you can still be believing those limiting beliefs, even if you know the terms, right? And so I really love that missionary work, but also helping members just like see who they are, even in their cracks, and that it's beautiful in their cracks. And that's why we came here, to experience the cracks and the wounds, and then he gets to fill us up if we will believe it and allow him to.
Yeah. Just before we finish, I keep on thinking of the story. I think it's a Japanese thing where they take a broken cup or a broken bowl or something, and they glue it all back together with gold, and you end up with something more beautiful than what you started with. But you have to be broken to start with before you can get that.
Yes.
You know?
It's so true. It's like the culture, and maybe and I know it's bigger in Utah, but there's just a culture of like, I got to live this level. And we came out of survival, with how many generations since Joseph died, and then Brigham and lockdown and survive. Now it's like coming out of survival of like, okay, but you got to allow yourself to show the cracks, connect, especially women. Like we're like when women are, especially like that's one of our gifts as women, when we can kind of unite. And I feel like people are attacking women, and it's like, oh, that's because women are actually pretty powerful. And once that fully starts to heal too, and we need men and women, but I really believe that women still need to fully be restored, and feminine and masculine within both men and women to mature like our heavenly parents.
It's the yin and the yang, isn't it? The yin and the yang.
The yin and the yang is so real. I love it. And I have somebody actually gave me one of those paintings. So I'm like, you've got to learn how to do those counterparts within, even with healings. Like, don't just worry about what you think. Also worry about how you feel. Like, put them together. Talk to God about both of them. What's going on? How do I get them into alignment, into that single I glory to God together so they work together? That's the epitome of the internal marriage that is the deeper message of Adam and Eve.
Yeah, yeah. Elisha, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being able to take some time out of your very busy schedule. It's a Sunday afternoon, so hopefully you're not too busy, but it's just been great hearing your story. It's quite a story. I think this will be certainly one of the most interesting podcast episodes that I've recorded. And I'm thinking of all the little clips I'm going to take out of this, and like it's clip after clip after clip, I think, that can be shared and hopefully get people to watch the full interview. I would encourage any viewers, listeners, whatever medium you're taking this in on, to follow Elisha, particularly on Instagram. You're easy to find, Elisha Harris. There's not too many Elisha Harrises, and you've got the blue tick and 155,000 followers or whatever. So that's the right Elisha if you're searching for Elisha. But she's also on YouTube and Facebook. So find Elisha and you'll get a daily dose, or maybe more than a daily dose of goodness from Elisha. She's always posting and sharing her thoughts and connecting people and just sharing stuff all the time. So please follow Elisha. And while you're at it, follow the Gathering podcast as well, because we have more exciting guests coming up. We've had a bit of a hiatus in our production of episodes in recent months, but got a couple of more interesting guests coming up in the near future. So once again, please follow Elisha and follow me, the Gathering podcast. Thanks for your time today. Thanks, Elisha. Bye-bye. If you have an interesting story to tell, please contact us via our Instagram page or send an email to gathering@proton.me.